Now I'm happy to introduce a long-time horse bettor and handicapper back to the show. You've heard him many times on the Pony Pundits and on the Wagertalk podcast. Really happy to welcome back Mr. SIG from Wagertalk.com. You can follow him on Twitter at SIG Las Vegas. SIG, it's already been a crazy year in horse racing, but man, how the heck you doing?
Oh, I'm doing great, Kiev. Thanks for having me. Got to apologize now. You asked me to come on back for Louisiana Derby back in March, but unfortunately, after dodging it for 2 years, COVID did finally track me down after March Madness weekend.
Yeah, and it's okay. I mean, I had it too. My whole family had it. It's kind of floating around again. I don't know whatever denomination they're going to call it this time, but it seems like we can't get rid of it. It's just too
we'll
fun.
Get it.
It's we're all going to get it multiple times, most likely, but or whatever. But can't worry about that anymore. But that's I'm glad you recovered. I hope you didn't have it too bad.
I mean, I'm vaccinated and boosted, so it was still probably the worst flu I ever had, but got through it and got on with the horses.
Yeah, you got back on the horses. That's important. Get back on the horse. But speaking of horses, we had a massive race 2 weeks ago. Maybe like even 10 days since it's only Tuesday we're recording this, the Kentucky Derby. And man, that horse, Rich Strike, he struck it rich for somebody, but it wasn't me, Sig.
It wasn't me either. I had a Kentucky Derby preview and guide over at Wagertalk, and I gave that horse a D and said he wasn't fast enough to compete. And he really wasn't, but based on the way the race played out, that's what gave him the advantage there at the end.
Weren't you watching it with Marco at the South Point?
Yeah, Marco and I were at the South Point in the ballroom watching it, and you could hear a pin drop in that place when the 21 came out of nowhere. At first, everybody thought it was the 2 because jockey Sonny Leone's foot covered up the 1 on the saddle cloth. So everybody at first thought it was Happy Jack. I'm like, that wasn't Happy Jack.
That wasn't Happy Jack. Oh, man, it was nuts. The announcers didn't even do that well. I mean, it's just kind of the horse that filled in at the last minute. Unless, like you said, the pre-show, if someone's name was Rich, maybe they used to watch the show Richie Rich when they were kids. I don't know, but not a heck of a lot of people had this horse. And I mean, that's why this thing paid so much. I mean, the exacta box was what, $4,000, 50-cent trifecta, $7,000. And you even had the favorite come in second, and one of the co-favorites, maybe the third favorite coming third was Zandon, and it still paid that much, Sig.
Right. I mean, I saw a couple of people out there posted up some tickets. They took all in the first leg of the trifecta and then used Zandon and Epicenter, who finished 2-3. They were basically the top 2 selections going all week into the Derby. So, I mean, that paid over $7,000, like you said, for a 50-cent ticket. So you could have got out of there for about $38 and turned it into $7,000. But I wasn't smart enough to bet it that way.
I guess I wasn't either. But at the same time, man, everyone's first thoughts about the horses and what's been going on with the Old Baffert is there controversy? Is the horse dirty? I mean, did that cross your mind at all?
Actually, that did not. I mean, it was actually kind of refreshing for me. I've been doing this game for a number of years here, and the past few years we've had some controversies between the Bafferts with the drugs. Medina Spearkin disqualified from last year's Derby. Maximum Security got disqualified based for an on-track incident, but we later learned that his trainer was definitely involved. He's actually serving some time right now for some drug violations. So it's been jaded. So it was kind of refreshing to see a small-time trainer, a small-time jockey with a horse that basically nobody expected coming out of nowhere to win the Derby. That's the kind of story that we like to have in horse racing. Granted, I didn't win a whole lot that day. I'm sure a lot of people didn't win a lot that day, but it's a fantastic story. Actually, a shame. A lot of people are upset that he's not going on to this week's Preakness here, but you got to do what's best for the horse.
So what was the reason for that then? Not coming on to the Preakness?
The trainer, I think, was thinking about doing it after a workout, but the connections, the ownerships decided that they didn't want to take the next step. I mean, it's only 2 weeks rest. Granted, the Triple Crown, there's a lot of people out there on Twitter saying that it's not going to be a test of the champion, but there's a lot of debate on whether we should start stretching these races out, having the Triple Crown races fall basically within 6 to 7 weeks here, 2 weeks between the Derby and then another 3 weeks to the Belmont is really tough. I mean, it's a lot different. Horses back when Secretariat were running and some of those other horses way back, they were running every week sometimes, multiple times in a week for some horses. But now if a horse runs twice in a month, it's a lot. And we're going to probably talk about this a little bit later in the show. There's a couple horses that already have a number of races under their belt that are in this week's Preakness that may have been a little over-raced so far. So I can't blame the Connections at all for skipping the Preakness here. I don't think they thought they had much of a chance in the Derby. I don't think they had much of a chance in the Preakness. It's going to be interesting where he turns up next. I don't think the Belmont is going to be a great race for him. He is a closer, and I'm not sure the distance is going to be the mile and a half is definitely a challenge here. But it's going to be interesting to see where Rich Strike lands next. I would have loved to see him in here on Saturday. He would have taken a good amount of money, and I think that would have definitely inflated the polls.
I wish he would have, because, a perfect closer fade horse for a Preakness track that runs a mile and an eighth, right? It's more of a speed track, and, it would have been nice for him to take some of the money, make it sweeter for some of us here that wanted to bet the front runners, or at least maybe some stalkers. That's what I thought. Yeah, controversy-wise, the horse, it was hard to predict. I couldn't predict it, and like you gave it a D. And that's what makes you think, was the horse doing something that was illegal? And I don't know. I can't imagine if he did come up dirty, horse racing would have been kaput, man. I think they would have lost so many fans. So there's just more and more just different theories out there, conspiracy theories and stuff, which is always tough. But, it's funny. I was upset that I lost the ticket, but I was kind of happy that a no name wanted to. That's like you said.
Definitely good for the game.
Struck it rich with Rich Strike. But anyways, I never seen a horse go and bite like that horse did a little bit. I thought that was interesting.
They do. I mean, you don't see it as often though, because number one, you don't have a national audience with NBC broadcasting a major race like that. But then also, Rich Strike came out of two races at Turfway Park. Turfway Park's in the process of tearing down and rebuilding their grandstand. Churchill Downs bought them. So they had he raced there twice in their two Derby preps, and they didn't have any fans at all at Turfway this year. So that horse went from his last two races being at a racetrack with no fans at all, pretty much quiet like COVID races were in 2020, to going to 150,000 screaming fans. And excuse my language here, but 145,000 were pretty pissed off after that result. So he's sure they were pretty loud here. He was a little upset. People were upset with the outrider who actually punched Rich Strike following the race, but Rich Strike attacked not only the outriding pony, he bit the outrider. So he was just defending himself and defending his mount there.
Looks like a tough guy, He came out there and did that. Well, unfortunately for this race, without a Triple Crown contender, it takes a little of the luster out of it, in my opinion. I think it would for other people, especially the Pimlico of the track. And is there any other stories going with this race? Any other excitement shaping up here?
Well, we touched on Rich Strike already. I mean, the biggest story is not him skipping the Preakness. There won't be a Triple Crown winner this year. But the other big story is the coach, Dwayne Lucas, 87 years old. He trained Secret Oath, a filly, who won the Kentucky Oaks. He's entered her here in the Preakness. If you guys remember, a couple years ago, Swiss skydiver for trainer Ken McPeak beat Authentic in the Preakness there. So the Phillies have won this race 6 times previously, so they could make it 7 here. Lucas had a lot of influence over Derby weekend. Not only did Secret Oath win the Kentucky Oaks, his horse Ethereal Road was the reason that Rich Strike even got into the race. He scratched him out on Friday morning before the race, allowing you also eligible to get in there. So he had an effect not only on the Oaks, but he had an effect on the Derby winner as well.
All right. Well, we got a filly in this race. There you go, man. And I think that's going to spice it up a little bit here. And it's nice to have that little storyline, if not, other piece to handicap. And I looked at it and, I'm undecided. So I'm going to see kind of what you think when we get to that point. But why don't you tell us a little history of the Preakness? I believe it's the 147th running of this race.
That is correct. Yeah, the Preakness Stakes first ran in 1873. That's actually 2 years before the Kentucky Derby was incepted here. The race was named after a horse named Preakness, who won a different stake race, which was actually the reason we have Pimlico Racetrack now and racing is so big in Maryland. They had a race called the Dinner Party Stakes in 1870, caused the formation of the racetrack of Pimlico, and they had a $15,000 purse there. I didn't work it out inflation wise, but that was a nice chunk of change back in 1873. Preakness was a horse nobody expected to win. He won that race. They eventually named their big 3-year-old race on the dirt here after him. The funny thing is the favorites won this race 73 times out of those 147 runnings. So in essence, 50% of the time, the favorite does win this race here. The largest margin of victory ever was in 2004. A horse named Smarty Jones won this horse by 11.5 lengths. And 6 times this race has been decided by a horse by less than a nose here. The most recent time was 1989 for a pretty good horse named Sunday Silence.
There you go. Sunday Silence. Well, Sunday Silence, probably, I imagine that was a pretty fast track that day, and by a nose. And back in '89, man, geez, can't even remember those days. The '80s, the '80s is a blur to me, man. Looks like LVC chimed in. Yeah, the stud fees will stay a little higher on this Rich Strike here, and I definitely agree. Maybe never race a closer in the Preakness. That could be the new trend kind of coming up here. Well, I'm going to talk about the favorite here with you. And I think Epicenter is a deserving favorite, priced at 6-5. I can't argue with that. I mean, ran the Derby second, and if there's a shorter race, he probably wouldn't won it, right? Does that make sense? This is a deserving favorite.
I have to agree with you completely there. Yeah, the 6-5 Epicenter has been the most impressive 3-year-old so far this year for trainer Steve Asmussen. Everybody thought coming down the stretch run there, he was going to get Asmussen, who's won the most races of any trainer in North America, his first Kentucky Derby win. And then, like I said, Rich Strike came out of the clouds there and got him there at the wire. A lot of that became a result of the early fast pace. There were 2 foreign horses with foreign jockeys that came in that went exceedingly fast on the front end of the Derby. And we've seen it before, but we haven't seen it actually since the Derby point system kicked in here back in 2014, 2015, that horses actually set an early fast pacer that brought the meltdown that allowed Rich Strike to come late. Epicenter stayed with those horses early. He was still there coming at the end. And everybody says, Rich Strike was going so much faster at the end. That's not true. Rich Strike was still keeping his pace there. Horses like Epicenter and Zandon were slowing down at the end of that race because they exerted so much energy to keep up with that early pace.
And it's so funny how it takes an advanced eye to see that. It looks to us that these horses are going the fastest possible bit, like 100, like in a 40, right? 100-meter dash. But it's more maybe like a 400-meter dash, slow down a little bit at the end, even though they look like they're trying to win. It's deceiving. But at the same point, Epicenter was actually running a little slower in a little bit longer of a race, which I find very interesting. Well, how would you judge the strength of this field in general now that the Kentucky Derby's winner's not in, and going by the other horses?
Yeah, overall, Kiev, this 9-horse field isn't going to impress too many people there. Only 3 of these horses that we'll see on Saturday also raced the Derby 2 weeks ago. And those are like we just talked about, the morning line favorite Epicenter, the 4th place finisher Simplification, and the 14th place finisher Happy Jack. There are a few new shooters to keep an eye on here. Early voting is coming in for our trainer Chad Brown. Creative Minister coming in for Ken McPeak. And like we talked about earlier, Secret Oath, the filly for Dean Wayne Lucas, are all new shooters we're going to take a look at here that might have a chance to upset here in the Preakness.
All right. Well, there you go. A little bit of a weaker. And here's the thing. The field being a little weak, maybe it's because Baffert, usually Baffert's got some big name horses in here, and we all know that he's suspended here, and it's Yaktine training them, but his horses didn't show up too well in the Derby. I think they got 15th place or something like that, 13th and 15th, maybe something like that. I mean, not even close to talking. So, or being in the talking points, and so maybe that's also part of the reason this field's a little weak, Sig. So, but at the same time, I have my early thoughts on it. And I'm just going to tell you that I think I'm going chalk. Maybe you're going to talk me off it, but I think Epicenter is going to win it. And I think I'm going to go with one long shot. I'm going to see first what your thoughts are on how it's shaping up for your ticket.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can't argue with that percenter. Like I said, he's been the best 3-year-old here. We aren't going to get much value with him. Like you said, he is going to be the chalk here. 6 to 5, even money, I think right around there. And the only reason that he's going to stay less or right around even money and not less than even money, I think, is that there are a couple other betting interests in here that should get some attention. Also, Epicenter is going to be making, I believe, his 5th start of 2020, it's 2022 now, which is a lot of starts for a horse. I mean, of that age. We'd like to see a few more lightly raced horses when they come in. They're a lot fresher in this spot. I think that's one of the reasons Chad Brown kept his horse, early voting out of they skipped the Derby. They went point right to the Preakness. Brown also did that with a horse a few years ago that won the Preakness called Cloud Computing. Only won 2 races in his life. He won his maiden. He won the Preakness. Didn't win another race in his career, but he pointed specifically to that spot. He's doing the same here with early voting. There's a couple horses in here, though, that are definitely not going to get a whole lot of attention. Early voting is going to get some attention. I think Secret Oath is going to get some attention. And a long shot selection in here that we'll talk about, I'm sure, sometime is Creative Minister. Trainer Kevin McPeak's bringing him in. This will only be his 4th career start. He did race back on Derby Day on the undercard, winning an allowance race here. But he's been impressive, and he's very lightly raced, so he's got a good spot here.
Which one's that?
That is Creative Minister.
Yeah, I'm not even seeing him on the oh, there he is. Yes, number 2. He's in the 2 hole. So, only 3 races I'm seeing here from the DRF Daily Racing Forum. It looks like he took first his last 2 races. His buyers has went up slightly every single race. So this one could be live. And is this one that you might be using?
Actually, well, yeah, that's going to be my long shot pick in this field here. He's listed 10-1 your morning line. I think he may go off a little bit higher here, but I think he's got the most upside of the new shooters in here.
Okay, well, there you go. That's not bad. And that's good information here coming in. And he raced the same day as everybody else over at Churchill Downs. So that's very interesting. I have a question about this one because Argmagnac, is that how to say him?
Yeah.
He's and this was a Baffert, now Yakteen, right? And so
Surrogate.
Yeah, and these horses got killed. Well, the other 2 did, Taiba and Messier. But that makes me wonder if I'm going to get more value on this one, because maybe now everyone's like, okay, Bafferts are toast. Then this horse comes in, and I'm also seeing, a nice little jump here. Obviously, the January to the March was just really weird in the San Felipe. I didn't watch the San Felipe. You probably did, where Forbidden Kingdom won over Doppelganger and Happy Jack. But then, he takes 3rd in the Santa Anita, and then he takes 1st, and his buyers goes up. And what are your thoughts on this one?
He's definitely a speedster here, and he's definitely going to change the complexion of the race. The West Coast racing, in my opinion, at Santa Anita has not been strong this year, as we saw from the results of Taiba and Messier in the Derby, both who I thought had a shot in there. They're definitely coming from a much weaker field. We see that sometimes, years that the West Coast is just the dominant coast, and that was with a lot of Baffert horses coming in. California, it wasn't a Baffert horse, but California Chrome came from the West Coast. American Pharaoh was a West Coast horse. Justify. We're not seeing the strength coming here. He is going to change the complexion of the race, as I said, though. He's a speedster. He likes to be out front. The Brown horse early voting was definitely looking like the early pace setter in here. And he's always had things his way. It's going to be interesting to see how he reacts when he gets challenged here early in the race. I still think early voting is going to be your early pace setter here, but I think this Yakteen horse is going to push him along.
Well, there you go. So he's going to get pushed a little bit by this the only Baffert / Yakteen horse, Yakfert, we'll call him, coming on in like we did a couple weeks ago. Argmagnac. So he was kind of my long shot. Who are you throwing off your card in this race, if any? Is there an all button potential coming in for SIG?
I don't think there's any all button potential, but just to quantify that, I didn't think that was also possible 2 weeks ago in the Derby here. So in horse racing, anything can happen. It's kind of like playing poker where you have aces, somebody has king, and the guy with 2-7 sucks out on at the very end. That's kind of what happened last week in the Derby here. But there are a couple horses here I'm not giving any chance to. Skippy Longstocking is in here. Has not been impressive in his races against Stakes Company. A new shooter that came in here really late is Fenwick. Took the colt 5 attempts to break his maiden, and then after that maiden breaking win, they threw him in the Bluegrass Stakes at Keeneland back in April. He was on the early pace, but he faded well late. He finished dead last of that race, I think over 30 lengths behind. And then Happy Jack for trainer Doug O'Neill. I'm not going to ever question Doug O'Neill because he's won some huge races. But this colt's best performance came at Santa Anita. We just talked about the West Coast. The horses coming in from the West Coast haven't performed well here. And it's definitely not the best coast for this 3-year-old season here. Happy Jack finished 14th in the Derby. The good news is he can't finish worse than 9th in here because there are only 9 horses.
There you go. We can't finish worse than 9th. That's important consideration here. So there you go. So there's 3 that's coming off your ticket. Well, makes total sense to me. Well, what do you think your approach is going to be without giving out too much information, obviously, to this race?
I have no problem giving the information out. I mean, it's all over the place. You can get podcasts here like yours. We do the Pony Pundits. I mean, Twitter's full of information. It's just a matter of how you process the information. That's all it comes down to in here. I think Epicenter's got a really good shot in here, but I'm not going to say he's a dead lock. I'm not going to be betting him at 6-5 or worse on the day, other than maybe a couple exotic tickets using him on top just to recoup any money that may be betting. But I'm going to be looking at a couple other shots, hopefully, to maybe beat him here in early voting. Secret Oath and Creative Minister, all 3 horses that I'll be looking to bet on Saturday.
Secret Oath. Okay, so you're kind of looking towards the Secret Oath, which is the 3rd favorite morning line, I would say, right? At 5.5 to 1, 9 to 2,
9 to 2,
right?
yep.
Or 4.5 to 1. Yeah, sorry. So yeah, this horse has run a lot, and it's a filly. So are you just in love with the whole idea with the filly, like what you saw last year?
It's not that. I mean, she ran a really impressive Kentucky Oaks here 2 weeks back. But what was really impressive, and it's going to throw some people off, is they're going to say, well, she ran the Arkansas Derby against the boys and only finished 3rd. If you go back and watch that race, she ran a tremendous race that day. She had Luis Contreras aboard, who's a good jockey, but she picked up Saez for the Oaks, and Luis Saez is going to ride her as well here in the Preakness. Much better jockey, and it's no offense to Contreras. Saez is just one of the top jocks on any circuit right now. He was one of the best at Gulfstream. He's one of the best on the New York circuit. He gets more out of the horse here. And I think with a horse like Secret Oath, who's going to be sitting just off the pace and then coming later here, I think Saez is a great jockey to time that pretty well here. And I think she's just very impressive for being a filly in there. There were a couple of fillies he talked about this year coming to the Derby. She was the only one that actually took a real shot at it. And it'd be interesting if she had won that Arkansas Derby or even finished 2nd, if Lucas would have put her in to the Derby field or put her into the Oaks, where she pretty much dominated in that Oaks there. And I have to give kudos to my colleague on Pony Pundits, Marco D'Angelo. He was really high on Secret Oath on Oaks Day. I was not. I mean, I had 5 horses on Oaks Day, and she was the one ended up being my 5th choice. She was between 4th and 5th there. But she ran a really impressive Kentucky Oaks there. And looking forward to seeing what she can do on Saturday.
Yeah, this is going to be the most interesting horse and the best story of the Preakness. Well, speaking of filly horses, don't we have a Black-Eyed Susan coming in on Friday?
Yeah, the Black-Eyed.
There you go, man. And so we have a possible daily double coming in, Black-Eyed Susan with the Preakness. Have you got a chance to look at that race?
Honestly, I haven't delved too deeply into it, being Tuesday. We drew the post positions yesterday afternoon, about 24 hours ago. Haven't had time to delve too deeply into the Black-Eyed Susan yet, but I will definitely have some information, I'm sure, on my other podcast, the Pony Pundits. We're taping that tomorrow, and we should be right on some Kentucky. Some Black-Eyed Susan plays for you that can lead to the Black-Eyed Susan Preakness Daily Doubles that will always have a pretty nice return.
All right. Well, sounds great. I look forward to that. How could our listeners benefit from your great plays coming for the weekend?
My daily race reports are available on Wagertalk.com. They're always up by 9 a.m. Usually they're up the previous evening at some point, and then I give you an update right before post time, about a half hour before first post, for any scratches or changes to track conditions, etc. Right now, we're at Belmont. We'll be at Pimlico just this weekend, though 2 days a year. I handicap Pimlico or this Friday and Saturday for Black-Eyed Susan and Preakness. We'll be at Belmont then through the Belmont Stakes and right through the Saratoga meet. We'll finish the summer out at Saratoga, head back to Belmont for about just a month before the Keeneland Fall meet, and that will lead us right in the Breeders' Cup weekend, which is the best betting weekend for any horse player of the year. You can also check out my podcast. Pony Pundits is on Wagertalk TV on a weekly basis. Usually we go live on Fridays, but for big weekends like this, we tape a show and then put it out there. So that will be out probably by Thursday morning. And also you can find my selections sometimes on Twitter. I'll give out some free information, and that's at SIG Las Vegas, as it sees on the screen. And you can also find my top selection every day for whatever track I handicap that day is always available, and it's free on my page at Wagertalk, wt.buzz/SIG.
All right. Make sure you guys check out SIG. He knows the ponies. He will have you all set up this weekend. Thanks again, SIG, for coming on.
Well, thanks for having me. Good luck to you.